A very good afternoon to you from the sports desk. Let's start with football. Bafana Bafana are gearing up for their match in their quest to make it to the biggest stage in football, the 2026 FIFA World Cup, to be held in the Americas. Coach Hugo Broos and his 23-man squad have been in Polokwane since Monday, preparing for two important World Cup qualifiers against Lesotho and Benin. Neighbours Lesotho are the nation they will face tonight in a Group C clash at the Peter Mokaba Stadium. And that's where sport reporter Vuyo Macoba joins us live from a sold-out venue. Vuyo, how is the team looking ahead of this qualifier that holds points that will be important to Bafana Bafana's quest for that place in the World Cup?
A very good afternoon to you too, Kwena, and the Newzroom Afrika viewers, of course, coming to you live from the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane. Ahead of what you've been saying in your introduction, is a crucial match for Bafana Bafana against Lesotho. Of course, the quest is to qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be played in the Americas, hosted, of course, by Mexico, USA, and Canada. This is the fifth match that Bafana Bafana will be playing, having played 4 so far already, won 2, drew 1, and of course lost another one. It's a big match for the South African side, and of course with Coach Hugo Broos, his quest is to make sure that he puts Bafana Bafana back into that world stage, which they last were in back in 2010, and that was of course at the back of the fact that we are hosting that 2010 World Cup, so we got the chance to be into that space. We tried it back in 2018 where we failed. Senegal, one of the teams that beat us as we're trying that quest. And of course, that match was also played here at the Peter Mokaba Stadium with Senegal beating Bafana Bafana 2-0. Now, just before I get into the gist of how Bafana Bafana is looking going into this match, I think, Kwena, just to say it loudly, how the city would definitely be proud of the fact that many of the fans have come out to support their national teams. You've just mentioned in your introduction that it's a sold-out affair. This is a 45,000-seater, of course, of fans, but 42,000 and more so are slowly starting to walk into the stadium right now. I'm going to ask my colleague just to pan for you, just to see some of the ones that were able to get the tickets in the last minutes, if I mention in that case, because as much as we're talking about the numbers that were going to the stadium, or the city was trying to get the fans to come into the stadium, about 19,000, 21,000 was the number that was sitting as far as 2 days ago. So the city was in a race to try and get fans to come into the stadium to support the national team. And now, as you see in these pictures, these are many of the fans that have decided in this long weekend they're going to make their way outside of Joburg, and in some of them, of course, within the city of Polokwane and Limpopo. So as a province, they're going to come in here and make sure that they support their national team in this big task that Bafana Bafana has, and of course, with Coach Hugo Broos. Now, Kwena, I did mention that the last time that Bafana Bafana played in this place was back in 2018, which was, of course, a World Cup qualifier. They lost that match 2-0 against Senegal, which then we lost the spot to go to the Russia World Cup. This quest for now, Hugo Broos, is to make sure that we are back into that world stage. Bafana Bafana hasn't been here in Polokwane since Monday. Coach Hugo Broos, of course, has brought in a 23-man squad that is hoping will make sure we'll put the goods against our neighbors. And of course, this building up motivation as we go into the second match on Tuesday against Benin. Kwena?
Coach Hugo Broos was forced to make player changes for these two qualifiers. Now, who are the notable players that will be key for today's success?
Definitely, Coach Hugo Broos has had a slight headache in the beginning of his selection for that 23-man squad. I mean, even in the beginning, the likes of TS Galaxy defender Khulumani Ndamane, he had called him up only to find that Ndamane doesn't have a passport, so he had to push him aside, and of course, being able to bring in another defender. Then we went into the days, I think it was Tuesday, when news were coming in that Pirates, of course, midfielder was not going to be part of the squad. He had received an injury back, you know, when even leading up to the game that they had played over the weekend. He had, of course, was disappointed about the fact that Orlando Pirates hadn't mentioned that Patrick Maswanganyi was not going to be in this match, who's one of the crucial members as a playmaker in the Bafana Bafana squad we've seen recently as well. Now you've also got another player that Coach Hugo Broos has brought into the squad. We're mentioning a Pesita who has not been part of the team for some time because of his injury as well. He's back in the Bafana Bafana squad to make sure that, of course, he enforces that attacking side. Now I think a special player for my side, Kwena, when it comes to this match is, of course, a Jaden Adams. He had been pushed out of the South African camps because of disciplinary matters as well. But recently coming to the Mamelodi Sundowns space, I should mention, he has been another player that has sort of looked disciplined when it comes into the playing part. Now, he plays a major role in this match because you don't have a Themba Zwane, who's always been, of course, in the gist of the middle of the park for Coach Hugo Broos. He's been injured. He just recently come back into the Mamelodi Sundowns setup after 5 months of being injured. He, of course, was injured, having been on national team duty. Now, with Themba Zwane out, Patrick Masanganye out in that middle of the playing park, Jaden Adams, who's also another player who's a visionary and is able to see those front forwards in terms of the strikers and give them those solid passes. We've seen him being able to do that now with Sundowns and even back then at Stellenbosch. He's going to be a key player for, of course, South Africa today in that middle of the park, with the likes of a Percy Tau in the front being the players that are going to make sure they need to tuck in those goals and make sure that we get this positive results today before we go into Benin in the next match on Tuesday. Kwena?
Now, on paper, Lesotho look like should be an easy match. They are ranked a little bit lower than us, and they cannot be underestimated. Has this been stressed enough by Coach Hugo Broos to his players in camp as to how dangerous will it be if they went into this match thinking that 3 points are already in the bag?
Certainly, Kwena, that's one of the matters that has been on the agenda for Coach Hugo Broos. South Africa sitting third on that standing with 2 points, of course locked in with Rwanda, and Benin sitting with 8 points at the top of the standings. You want to get out of these 2 matches with that 6-pointer that Coach Hugo Broos has been saying that we need to get, so that you make sure that you lock up Group C and go after these 2 matches sitting at the top of the standings. So key is this match. But one of the things is that, yes, it's a neighboring country. You've got players that are coming into the Lesotho setup that only play in a sort of a lower league, a countryman in the Lesotho side. So when you look at it on paper, you see a 57th ranked side in Bafana Bafana against a side that is 92 places away from a Bafana Bafana in terms of the FIFA rankings. And of course, you can come into this match and say on paper, Bafana Bafana needs to win this match. But we know Coach Hugo Broos is one of those coaches that doesn't leave those matters into standing. He makes sure that we need to come out this match with a positive result and possibly make our way in getting this 6-pointer. He's definitely told his players that don't be complacent just because Lesotho doesn't have a strong players coming to this match. But one of the key things about this, Kwena, is the fact that people are not seeing that Lesotho, when they are playing away, they've been one of, the teams that you can't take lightly. I can take back the likes of the time that we were playing in Cameroon. Cameroon needed to struggle, scoring in the 93rd minute to make sure that they beat Lesotho. But Lesotho had not been a pushover when it comes to Morocco in that away match in North Africa. They did the same thing against Nigeria, getting that 1-1 draw away. Also, Gabon, it's a similar thing. And even when they played Zimbabwe at the Orlando Stadium, it was an away match. They also beat Zimbabwe. So when it comes to away matches, Lesotho has been one of those teams that have been fairly motivated. Of course, you have got a coach in Leslie Noti, who's very respecting to a Coach Hugo Broos. He's going to make sure that he comes to this match and pits himself against a coach that he definitely respects. And the other key about this thing, the players that are in the Lesotho team setup are players that definitely play in the league, in the countryside. But they look into South Africa and saying, we want to one day play into the PSL and make our way into the Premier Soccer League. Now, this is the match that will definitely make sure that these players put out their best footing so that local coaches in South Africa get to see them and possibly pull them into the PSL setup. If there was one match, Kwena, where a younger brother wants to make sure that he pits against a bigger brother, it doesn't get better than this one. Kwena?
Absolutely, Vuyo. Indeed, we're looking forward to that big match